Welcome to this deep dive
Wow.
into Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money.
Yeah.
We're going to be exploring why understanding your own behavior
Right.
is so crucial when it comes to your finances.
Okay.
It's not just about
Right.
being a math whiz.
Right.
It's about getting your head in the game.
It's fascinating how Housel flips the script on traditional financial advice.
Yeah.
He dives right in,
Yeah.
showing us that it's more about temperament
Right.
than IQ when it comes to building wealth.
You're right. He contrasts Ronald Reed,
Mm-hmm.
a janitor who quietly amassed an $8 million fortune, with Richard Fuscone,
Yeah.
a Harvard MBA and millionaire who went bankrupt.
Yeah.
Two drastically different paths, but why?
Housel argues that Reed's success was built on years of disciplined saving and investing.
Okay.
No get-rich-quick schemes here,
Right.
just steady growth over time.
Yeah.
Fuscone, on the other hand, fell prey to the emotional side of money,
Hmm.
letting ego and perhaps impulsive decisions derail his financial journey.
So it's not about being brilliant, it's about being consistent.
Yeah.
That's a real game changer for those of us who thought
Yeah.
we needed some secret formula to succeed with money.
Absolutely. And House goes deeper,
Okay.
exploring how our personal experiences color our money mindset, our upbringing, the economic climate we've lived through.
Yeah.
They all shape how we view risk savings and even what we consider enough.
I'm thinking about those stories we hear about people who lived through the Great Depression, how they were incredibly frugal even years later.
Right.
It makes you realize that our individual quirks with money
Yeah.
often stem from what we've seen and felt firsthand, not just theoretical ideas.
Housel uses the example of lottery tickets to illustrate this point.
Okay.
It might seem illogical for someone struggling financially to buy lottery tickets,
Right.
but for them it represents a glimmer of hope,
Yeah.
a chance to break free from their circumstances.
While I might not personally buy lottery tickets, I can understand the appeal, especially for someone who feels like they have limited options.
Right.
It's a reminder that we should approach financial decisions with empathy, trying to understand the underlying motivations.
Exactly. Then Housel introduces this compelling analogy about Bill Gates and his childhood friend, Kent Evans.
You know, this part really made me think.
Okay.
Gates, as we all know, went to a prestigious school with early access to computers in the 1960s.
Right.
That early exposure was crucial to his later success.
Yeah.
His friend Evans, equally brilliant, died tragically in a climbing accident.
It's a stark reminder that luck and risk are woven into the fabric of our lives,
Right.
including our financial destinies.
Yeah.
Gates was incredibly talented and driven, yes, but he also had opportunities that many others,
Yeah.
even those with equal potential, simply didn't.
This makes me question how we often judge financial success or failure. There's often a hidden layer of fortune or misfortune at play that we don't see.
Housel then shifts gears, exploring the never-enough phenomenon.
Okay.
Through the stories of Rajat Gupta, the Goldman Sachs board member caught in insider trading,
Right.
and Bernie Madoff mastermind of the infamous Ponzi scheme.
Both were already incredibly wealthy,
Yeah.
but they risked it all for more.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. Why do even the ultra-rich sometimes crave more, jeopardizing everything?
It reveals the complexities of human psychology, even at the highest levels of wealth. For some, the pursuit of more becomes an obsession,
Yeah.
a relentless quest for validation,
Right.
or a fear of losing what they've built.
It makes you realize that money, while useful,
Yeah.
doesn't automatically equal contentment.
Right.
So what's the key to finding that balance, that sense of enough?
That's something House delves into throughout the book, and it's a
Right.
journey, not a destination. But first, let's talk about one of the cornerstones of finance compounding.
Okay, the snowball effect.
Right.
Housel uses vivid imagery to illustrate how small, consistent gains, like slowly accumulating ice sheets, can lead to massive results over time.
Our brains, wired for linear thinking,
Yeah.
often struggle to grasp the exponential power of compounding.
Right.
We underestimate how seemingly insignificant percentages compounded over decades can transform modest sums into real wealth.
It's a powerful argument for starting to invest early, but Housel also distinguishes between getting wealthy and staying wealthy, doesn't he?
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
He contrasts Jesse Livermore, a trader who made and lost fortunes multiple times, with the enduring success of companies like Intel and Costco.
Right.
Building wealth may involve taking bold risks,
Yeah.
but preserving it demands a different skill set.
Okay.
Frugality, a healthy dose of paranoia, and a laser focus on long-term survival.
It's like the tortoise and the hare, but for finance.
Yeah.
Slow and steady often wins the race
Right.
when it comes to growing and preserving wealth over the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
Housel then introduces this concept of tail events, which sounds pretty intriguing. Can you unpack that a bit?
He uses tail events to explain the outsized impact
Okay.
of rare, unpredictable occurrences in the financial world.
Okay.
Think about venture capital,
Mm-hmm.
where most investments fail, a few do okay,
Right.
and a tiny fraction achieve extraordinary success,
Yeah.
driving the majority of returns.
So it's not always about picking the right stock,
Right.
but about being in the game long enough to ride the wave of
Oh.
those rare explosive winners.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this ties into Housel's discussion of the ultimate dividend of wealth,
Okay.
freedom.
The freedom to do what you want when you want with whomever you want.
Yeah.
It's a dream many of us share.
Housel argues that freedom is the highest form of wealth,
Mm,
the ability to control your time and choices,
right.
pursuing passion, spending time with loved ones,
Yeah.
not being chained to a job you dislike.
Right.
It's about using money to create a life of meaning and purpose.
Which reminds me of the man in the car paradox.
Oh, yeah?
You know, it's funny, but this really resonated with me
Yeah.
because of your time as a valet.
Uh-huh.
You used to drive all those fancy cars
Right.
and realized that people rarely looked at the driver.
Yeah.
They were admiring the car itself.
It's a great illustration of how we often misunderstand the relationship between wealth and admiration.
Right.
Seeking validation through flashy purchases might not deliver the desired results.
Yeah.
People with luxury items often become benchmarks for others' aspirations,
Mhm.
rather than being admired for who they are.
It's like they become a symbol, a status marker,
Right.
rather than a person.
Yeah.
This idea of perception versus reality is fascinating.
Yeah.
And it leads perfectly into Housel's concept of the invisible nature of wealth.
Uh-huh.
Tell me more about this one. Sounds intriguing.
Housel argues that true wealth is often what you don't see.
Okay.
It's the savings you accumulate, the financial security you build,
Yeah.
the options these provide.
Mm.
Think of Ronald Reed, the janitor who quietly amassed millions.
Right.
Nobody knew he was wealthy because he lived modestly,
Yeah.
saving and investing diligently.
This reminds me of all those stories about incredibly successful people who live surprisingly frugal lives.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see their frugalities.
Right.
We don't realize how much it contributes to their wealth.
Housel emphasizes that the unseen returns of savings,
Yeah.
freedom to change careers, early retirement peace of mind,
Hmm.
are incredibly valuable even if they're not as immediately gratifying
Right.
as a new car or a luxury vacation.
So it's about playing the long game,
Yeah.
delaying gratification, and building a solid foundation.
Yeah.
But then how does he explain that some people seem to effortlessly save,
Right.
while others struggle to make ends meet?
And that's where Housel tackles the psychology of saving.
Okay.
He acknowledges that most people understand the importance of saving,
Right.
yet many struggle to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
He suggests that building wealth isn't just about earning a lot.
Oh.
It's about the gap between your income and your ego.
It's that classic saying,
Okay.
it's not what you make, it's what you keep.
Exactly.
But how do you actually bridge that gap?
Housel argues that it comes down to finding contentment with what you have, resisting the urge to constantly upgrade your lifestyle,
Right.
to match those around you.
Right.
It's about defining your own version of enough.
So it's about breaking free from the keeping up with the Joneses mentality.
Yeah.
That's a tough one, especially in today's social media-driven world,
Right.
where we're constantly bombarded with images of others' seemingly perfect lives.
It is tough.
Yeah.
But Housel makes a compelling case for prioritizing savings as the foundation of financial well-being.
Yeah.
Even small, consistent savings compounded over time
Right.
can create a financial cushion that provides security and options down the road.
It's like building a financial fortress brick by brick.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a millionaire to start
Right.
just consistent with your efforts.
Right.
But speaking of traditional financial advice, Housel challenges us to think differently about the whole concept of rationality when
Yeah.
it comes to making financial decisions.
That's right.
Okay.
He uses the story of Nobel laureate Harry Markowitz,
Okay.
who developed a complex theory for portfolio optimization,
Mm-hmm.
but ended up splitting his own retirement savings equally between stocks and bonds.
Wait, so the guy who literally won a Nobel Prize for
Yeah.
figuring out the best way to invest didn't even follow his own advice?
I know, right?
That's surprising.
Exactly.
So what's the takeaway here? Should we
Yeah.
just ignore logic altogether?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Housel's point is that we're not spreadsheets.
Right.
We're human beings with emotions and biases.
Yeah.
It's okay to make financial decisions that feel reasonable, even if they're not perfectly rational from a purely mathematical standpoint.
So sometimes it's better to go with your gut
Yeah.
and choose a path that feels right, even if it's not the mathematically optimal solution. I like that.
Housel emphasizes the importance of loving your investments, meaning having an emotional connection to your financial strategy.
Okay.
This makes you more likely to stick with it through the ups and downs,
Right.
which is crucial for long-term success.
It's about finding a balance between head and heart,
Yeah.
between logic and emotion, to create a plan you can actually live with for the long haul.
Right.
It's about sustainability, not just fleeting wins.
And then Housel throws us a curveball,
Okay.
reminding us that the only constant in finance is surprise.
Oh, boy, tell me about it.
Yeah.
The market is full of unexpected twists and turns.
Right.
How do we navigate that uncertainty without getting swept away by fear or impulsive decisions?
Housel challenges the historians as prophets fallacy,
Okay.
which is the tendency to over-rely on past data to predict the future.
Right.
He reminds us that the financial world is constantly evolving with structural shifts like the rise of the 401k and the growth of venture capital, changing the rules of the game.
As Housel points out, relying solely on past data can be misleading because the landscape is constantly changing.
Yeah.
But if we can't rely on the past, how do we make sense of the future?
That's where it gets really tricky.
Right.
Housel acknowledges the seduction of pessimism,
Oh, okay.
how it often sounds smarter and more credible, even though history shows that the world has generally trended towards progress over the long term.
Why are we so drawn to pessimism?
Well,
It seems counterintuitive, especially if the trend is toward progress.
it's partly due to the media's bias toward negative news.
Okay.
Bad news sells,
Right.
and our brains are wired to pay more attention to threats and dangers than gradual improvements.
Yeah.
We focus on events like market crashes or plane crashes,
Right.
while overlooking the steady progress in areas like healthcare or poverty reduction.
So it's almost like pessimism is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
We focus on the negative, making us more likely to expect negative outcomes, which then reinforces our pessimism. It's a vicious cycle.
It is.
But how do we break free from that cycle and find a more balanced perspective?
That's where Housel's advice on crafting a personal financial philosophy comes into play.
Okay.
And that's a great segue into part 2 of our deep dive. We'll be right back.
Okay, that sounds good.
Housel uses a rather unexpected analogy to illustrate how we can create a more resilient financial philosophy.
Okay.
He suggests thinking about your money like a 1-year-old.
1-year-old. That's not the first thing that comes to mind when I think about managing finances.
Yeah.
How does that even relate?
Think about it. A 1-year-old has very limited experience with the world.
Okay.
Their understanding is based on a tiny fraction of what life has to offer.
So they have a very simplistic view of things.
Yep.
Kind of like tunnel vision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just like a 1-year-old, we all tend to create mental models of how the world works based on our limited experiences. These models might make sense to us, but they often fail to capture the vast complexity of the real world.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to something as nuanced as finance.
So you're saying we're all kind of stumbling around with these oversimplified ideas about money?
Right.
Trying to make sense of a system that's much bigger and more intricate than we can grasp.
Precisely.
Right.
And that's where the danger lies.
Okay.
When our simplified models collide with reality.
Right.
We can make decisions that seem irrational or even reckless.
So if we're all walking around with these limited mental models, how do we break free from that? How do we avoid making those kinds of mistakes?
Housel suggests that we need to acknowledge the limits of our own knowledge and be open to the possibility that we might be wrong. We need to constantly question our assumptions and be willing to adapt our views as we gain new information and experiences.
It's about embracing humility and recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
Right.
It's about being lifelong learners, constantly seeking new perspectives and challenging our own beliefs.
I like that.
And that leads to his next point.
Okay.
The importance of defining the game you're playing.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What does he mean by defining the game?
He argues that we often get caught up in comparing ourselves to others or trying to achieve goals that aren't truly aligned with our own values and aspirations.
Okay.
It's like playing a game without knowing the rules or the objective.
So it's about figuring out what truly matters to you,
Yeah,
what success looks like on your own terms,
right.
rather than blindly following the crowd
Mm-hmm.
or chasing someone else's definition of success.
Exactly. He suggests taking the time to define your own personal financial philosophy.
Yeah.
What are your goals?
Right.
What level of risk are you comfortable with? What does financial success look like to you?
It's about creating a personalized roadmap for your financial journey,
Right.
one that reflects your unique values, circumstances, and aspirations. Exactly.
But once you've defined your own game, what's next?
Housel reminds us to be aware of the influences of others
Okay.
who might be playing a different game.
Like those flashy Ferraris we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
symbols of someone else's definition of success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're often seduced by the lifestyles and spending habits of others
Right.
without considering their motivations or circumstances.
It's easy to fall into the trap of comparison,
Yeah.
especially in today's hyper-connected world.
Right.
We see the curated highlight reels of other people's lives and think, I need that too,
Yeah.
without recognizing that we're all on different paths with different goals and priorities.
Right. Housel suggests that we should be wary of letting the spending habits of others
Okay.
dictate our own financial decisions.
Mhm.
He reminds us that true wealth isn't about keeping up appearances. It's about having the freedom and flexibility to live a life that's meaningful to you.
It's about being authentic and defining your own version of success, rather than trying to fit into someone else's mold. I love that.
Yeah.
It's about owning your own journey.
And finally, he encourages us to respect the mess.
That's a great phrase. What does he mean by respect the mess?
He's acknowledging that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to finance.
Well, yeah.
There's no single right answer, no magic formula that guarantees success.
Okay.
The financial world is complex and messy,
Yeah.
and people have different goals, values, and risk tolerances.
So it's about accepting that there's no single right way to manage money.
Yeah.
It's okay to deviate from the traditional advice
Right.
if it doesn't align with your personal circumstances.
Exactly. What works for one person might be disastrous for another.
Right.
It's about finding a strategy that aligns with your own individual circumstances and psychology.
It's about embracing the individuality of our financial journeys,
Yeah.
acknowledging that there are many paths to success.
And that's where Housel gets personal.
Okay.
He shares his own money philosophy, emphasizing the importance of frugality and independence
Right.
and aligning spending with your values.
I remember him talking about how he and his wife intentionally chose
Yeah.
to maintain their modest lifestyle even as their income grew.
Yeah.
They prioritized savings and focused on building a sense of financial security and freedom.
It's a powerful reminder that wealth isn't just about accumulating more.
Right.
It's about using money as a tool to create a life that aligns with your values and priorities.
It's about living intentionally and making choices that support your long-term well-being, both financially and emotionally.
Right.
It's about having a healthy relationship with money.
And that brings us to Housel's exploration of the history of the American consumer, where he traces the evolution of how we think about money from the post-World War II boom to the rise of credit and the financial crisis of 2008.
This was a fascinating part of the book.
Yeah.
He argues that after World War II, there was a deliberate effort
Right.
to encourage consumer spending as a way to boost the economy.
Right.
It was almost patriotic to go out and buy things.
Exactly. Policymakers intentionally kept interest rates low,
Okay.
making it easier for people to borrow money, to buy homes, cars, and other goods.
It was a major cultural shift.
Yeah.
Suddenly, debt became more acceptable,
Right.
and consumer spending became a sign of economic progress. It was the birth of the consumer culture we live in today.
And this trend continued for decades,
Right.
fueling economic growth, but also leading to rising levels of household debt.
Which, as we saw in 2008,
Yeah.
can become unsustainable and lead to major financial crises.
Right.
It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of relying too heavily on debt
Yeah.
and the importance of living within our means.
But Housel also points out that the legacy of this era continues to influence our thinking today. We still live in a culture that often equates spending with success and happiness,
Yeah.
even though we know that true wealth is about much more than material possessions.
It's about breaking free from that consumerist mindset.
Yeah.
And redefining wealth in terms of financial security, freedom,
Right.
and the ability to live a life that's truly aligned with our values.
It's about recognizing that happiness doesn't come from accumulating things,
Right.
but from experiences, relationships, and living a life of purpose.
Precisely. And that's where Housel leaves us,
Yeah.
with a call to action to create our own financial philosophies and to use money as a tool to build a life that's rich in meaning and purpose.
It's not just about managing money.
Right.
It's about managing your relationship with money. It's about recognizing that money is a powerful force in our lives.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to control us.
Right.
We have the power to choose how we use it, and that choice can have a profound impact on our happiness and well-being.
Ready for part 3. You know, as we've been exploring the psychology of money, I've been struck by how relatable it is.
Yeah.
It's not just about abstract financial theories. It's
Right.
about understanding the human side of money, the emotions and biases that drive our decisions.
Housel's brilliance lies in how he weaves together historical anecdotes, personal stories, and psychological insights.
Yeah.
It makes for a captivating narrative. It's both informative and relatable.
Right.
He doesn't shy away from the complexities of human behavior,
Right.
acknowledging that we're often irrational and driven by emotions, even when it comes to money.
I appreciate how he acknowledges that we're not perfect.
Yeah.
We make mistakes, we get emotional, and sometimes we act against our own best interests.
Right.
It's refreshing to hear a financial expert recognize that.
And by recognizing those tendencies,
Right.
we can start to make more informed and intentional choices.
Yeah.
That's what makes Housel's book so powerful. It's a guide to understanding ourselves and our relationship with money,
Right.
so we can use it as a tool to create a life that aligns with our values and aspirations.
He really emphasizes that financial success isn't about getting rich quickly. It's about building a sustainable financial foundation that supports a life of meaning and purpose.
And that leads us to his thought-provoking final question.
Okay.
If you could design your financial life to maximize happiness and minimize regret, what would it look like?
That question really gets you thinking.
It does.
It goes beyond numbers and spreadsheets and forces us to consider what truly matters.
Yeah.
What kind of life do we want to create for ourselves and our loved ones? What experiences do we want to prioritize? How can we use money to support those goals?
It's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
There's no single right answer.
Right.
But by asking ourselves these questions, we gain valuable insights that can help us shape a financial plan
Okay.
that's truly aligned with our values and aspirations.
This deep dive has uncovered some essential insights from the psychology of money, but there's so much more to discover within the book itself.
I highly recommend you read it. It's an invaluable guide to navigating the often irrational world of personal finance.
As you reflect on what we've discussed today,
Yeah.
remember that mastering the psychology of money is an ongoing journey, not a destination.
It is.
It takes time and effort.
It does.
It's about developing self-awareness, challenging your assumptions, and making intentional choices that align with your unique circumstances and goals.
Right.
It's about finding financial strategies that feel right now,
Yeah.
even if they're not the most conventional or optimal by traditional standards.
Exactly.
And on that note, we wrap up this deep dive into the psychology of money.
Okay.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into the things that matter most to you.